Paul and Deb Rees, experts in business, leadership and lifestyle. Skilling yourself to a successful you. Emotions are your value, and your value is your business. UK Health Radio.
We're in and we're up and running. And wow! Yes, off the Richter scale. It went red. Not my mic, but my guest mic went red. Paul, slow down. It's great to be your listeners, and let me just calm it down because I love the beginning. I love the beginning, the middle, and the end of the show. There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end to anything in life, and there certainly is to this show. Great to be your listeners, and you know what? I'm just going to say I love you. I love you. Thank you for being there every single week in, week out with your earworm, however it is you like to say it. If we say it in Welsh, it'd be clist. Clist, yeah, is Welsh for years. Yes, your clist worm, we would say. Almost sounds a little bit dodgy. Do you know what I mean? Your clist year. That's the Welsh language for you, eh? It's great to be your listeners, and I've had a real testing week this week. Do you know why? My good lady, my partner in crime, my wife, till death do us part, and all that beautiful stuff, is on a silent week. Figure that. So she's gone off 11 days where she is meditating how do you meditate for 8 hours a day? Meditating for 8 hours a day. There's over 200 people there, and nobody can speak. You can't say how be, you can't nod. Her mobile phone was apparently locked up on arrival, so she hasn't got any of that. You can't wear any perfumes, any branded clothes. You're not allowed to show any cleavage. No, that shouldn't matter when it comes to meditating because your eyes should be closed. But no cleavage, and it's all pretty bland, focusing on the power of your inner mind all week. She said to me, Paul, the first 3 days, we are concentrating on the breath coming from your nose, hitting the top of your lip. That's all they are thinking about the first 3 days. I mean, have you ever sat and really given your breath that much thought? 3 days. Now, bear in mind, I'm going to share with you. She starts 4:30 in the morning until 6:30 is a meditation. Then it's breakfast. Then she said it's something like 8 till 11 meditation. Then it's lunch at 11 a.m. Then it's something like 12:30 till 4 maybe in the afternoon, another meditation. And then guess what evening meal is? 2 pieces of fruit. Go on, Deb. She did no preparation for just 2 pieces of fruit in the evening or any vodka, by the way. Do you know what I mean? And then she said, it's bed at 8 o'clock or whatever, and you're back at 4:30 again for 10 days straight. And nobody can talk to anybody. Now, when she got there, what she said to me was, before her phone was taken from her, guess what, Paul, I got a room of my own. I said, what does it matter, Deb? You can't speak to anybody anyway. Do you know what I mean? But you know what? These inner journeys are massive, and I applaud her. But that's where my good lady is this week. And I've been advised by someone who's been on the program already, when she comes home, slow down, Paul, because she wouldn't have spoke for 11 days. So don't just come at her as you would in your usual self. So I'm really going to have to reduce. I'll have to give her the half measure of me until she climatizes back into the Rees household. Absolutely. But here's the thing. I'm really excited next week to be sharing with you my wife's silent experience. I mean, what is there to talk about? There's silence. But here's the thing. Here's what I want to say, listeners. More goes on inwardly than goes on outwardly. More goes on inwardly in your life than goes on outwardly in your life. And that's what excites me about the share of next week. And talking about inwardly, you know, we have a beautiful guest with us here today. Here's the thing. She has a nickname. Our guest has a nickname. So this is all the reason why you want to listen. The human accountability expert. The human accountability expert. Now, how far can you stretch that? Do you know what I mean? I love it. I really do. And that's our guest this week. I'm going to be bringing her on in just a sec. But for me, you know, I've got a lot of, I'm going to say, is there irons in the fire? I think that's how they say it. Or I got a lot of things I'm stalking through right now. But one of them is, guys, yes, I'm going to be starting my own network event. I've decided it's going to happen. And it's not going to be networking as in networking. It's going to be with a difference. There's a lot of these platforms out there, but it's been snapping at my heels for about 3 or 4 years now, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. It's happening. I put it out there. I'm going to make myself accountable. And guess what? With the accountability expert we have on here today, I ain't got a choice because she'll be snapping at me. Have you followed through with what you promised on the show those couple of months back? That's going to happen. Truly, it is. But yeah, let me get on with the show anyway, because you where we are. I've had many, I think I'm going to say hundreds, because I'm something like 350 odd shows in, if I'm correct now, this show. Many hundreds of, I'm going to say experts, mind experts, people that, really are there to promote shifts in mindsets, shifts in people's doings, taking people from doings to beings and things. But this one here, the guest we have here today, she is like a mixing bowl of expertise. I mean, listen, when I asked this lovely guest to send me on information, it took me all day to print off just what she sent on. I said, oh, Paul, I threw something together. Maybe it's enough for you. It's like, what? You want to get her 2-minute reads. You want to get her, go on an email list and get her 2-minute reads. Trust me. Her 2 minutes is different to anybody else's because they like a 20-minute read. But it's beautiful. It really is. She does know when to stop when it comes to giving and giving. And in that sense, let's get this giving lady onto the show here today. She's fantastic. I love her. She's got a double barrel. And if you've got a double barrel name, there's no end to this person. Truly is. I'm going to bring her on. Here she is, the wonderful, the beautiful, the lovely, the mind shifter of our universe, Nicola Rylett-Jones. Let me bring her on, man.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh my God. Well, I married a Welshman called Jones. So I had to double barrel. It wasn't given to me at birth. My business is called the Nicola Rylett Group. Yeah. So I couldn't lose my name. So I had to Rylett-Jones.
Well, here's the thing, Nicola Jones just doesn't have any of it's like, well, yeah, man, it's that you lose it. Because Nicola Jones just goes into the melting pot of common names like Paul Rees. But when you put the Rylett in there, you see, it was such a great idea.
Well, and the business was, I'm not egotistical, I promise your listeners, but actually when you put the initials of my business together, the Nicola N, Rylett R, Group G, it spells energy. And that's what we're all about. We're about injecting energy into people and businesses. It's all about making sure people feel motivated and have that, come on, grit to go and get it done. So it's the brand and the name is all part of the authenticity of who I am as a person.
And Nicola, you don't ever have to say, you're not being egotistical, because you are one of the least egotistical people I've met. And to a point really where you don't say enough good things about yourself.
Thank you.
Your modesty is really, you practice it at a level where we don't really get to experience the amazingness of who you are. I was lucky that we spent some time together a couple of months ago, brainstorming and all these beautiful things that we do. And I learned so much from you. There are lots of versions of think leaders out there. There really are. But, this little nickname we have here, the human accountability expert, I'm going to say that's absolutely true, because it's you practice what you preach. You're very accountable to yourself. You're very accountable to, your goals and your targets, which we're going to talk about here in a sec. But, when we look at accountability, do you think that it's the shape of what accountability is now has changed?
Oh, wow, that's a cracking question to start with. I suppose changed, or maybe our view. Maybe we view accountability differently. So maybe accountability has always been accountability. Yeah. But maybe we're viewing it in a different way. Many years ago, we were told what to do in the workplace. Many years ago, we went to work for the same employer as it was then, and we worked there for many years. But these days, that's not how we live our life. It's not how we have our careers. We have portfolio careers. We have careers that are made up of passions and purposes rather than just doing something that we're skilled in or we're an expert in. And so if that's the case, then we don't have somebody telling us what to do. Leadership has changed from that perspective as well. And so I think our view of how we keep and hold ourselves accountable has potentially changed because of the way that we're living and we're experiencing the workplace, more than maybe the word accountability or what accountability stands for has changed.
I love that answer, and I knew it wasn't too big of a question, because we'd say we've had many deep dives, and I love that the way you shaped that, which is the view of accountability has changed. We're no longer KPI driven. We are people driven now. So we are key performing individuals rather than key performing indicators, which certainly has changed the shape. Now, there are many specialities that you have as I'm not going to call you a business coach, because that's just too closeted for who you are as a person.
Yeah.
There's development, growth programs. Let me just see if I can get, because listen, listeners, I've got so much highlighted here when it comes to this lady, and there's so much I want to talk about. But what I suppose what I'm getting to is that your approach is very detailed, but yet very rounded. It's like when you come into organizations, you look at, not just practical growth plans, development, effective sales, marketing strategies, increasing the organization's long-term financial resilience, assisting teams, develop sound commercial acumen to growth in organizations, mentoring and coaching leadership programs, cultural change and brand development, where you really know about true vision and values, and of course, business development and lead generation activities. This was only about 60% of what I could have read off. The rest, you can imagine, listeners, you are very experienced, because, to write these all out, you have to know them. And go on.
But that's, as human beings, we are complicated individuals. And that means that businesses are complicated in individual organisms. The organization is complex because it's filled with people. And that makes what makes my job really, really interesting, because we can have probably 4 or 5 or 6 business challenges that generally affect most businesses. You could say affect most families. It's finance, the pressure of finance. It's the how we're growing. It's how do we acquire customers? Those kind of things. Very similar problems from organization to organization. Ultimately, what makes it different, what makes it complicated, is the people. And so, yes, that's a really nice way of putting that my approach is quite rounded. I often say to clients when we're doing facilitated workshops, or we're doing sessions, I'll say, look, I'm going to go off here a minute, and then I'm going to come back, then I'm going to go off there a minute, then I'm going to come back. And in the end, it'll all make sense. Yeah. And it is a little bit like you'll go to look at one area of the library and you'll read something that says, no, I need to get under the skin of that a bit more. So you go to another bit of the library and you get under the skin of that a little bit more. Then you do something else and it leads you to think about something else. And then there's another problem over in this challenge area over here. And before you know it, you've looked at all the areas of the business, because they're all interlinked, and they're all interlinked by the people. And if you're affecting, if you're a head of marketing, or if you're a head of production innovation, or whatever you might be, you will affect a number of people, both in your team and across the whole business. And so you having a difficult day or a difficult challenge or not getting the support you need will affect others around you. And so, yes, you have to approach it in the round, I suppose, because that's complicated. Businesses are that way, and people are complicated. Yeah, that's how I would suggest that.
I love that, Nicola, because that's such an emotional broadband approach, where effectively all you're seeing is the emotional approach, the attitudes that people are injecting into their roles effectively has this emotional cause and effect to everything else around them. Because, at the end of the day, running a business is easy. It's what we bring in of ourselves to actually run that project, run that business, be accountable, is what creates that cause and effect, you feel?
And absolutely. And I think I'm really practical, as you know. One of my values is about adding value and inspiring action. So for those people that are listening, a really good way you can think about this and spot it in your organizations, even in your families, as I say, these things can apply to both, is above the line and below the line thinking. So this is a concept from conscious leadership. And if you are above the line, you are open-minded, you're learning, you're curious, you're in creator mode, you're interested in what's going on, you want to find out more, you want to understand more. If you're below the line, then you're the class is in victim mode. You feel threatened. You feel defensive. You're trying to prove yourself right. So if you're in a business meeting and somebody's asking a question, which might be, oh, that's really interesting. Tell me a bit more about that. And you can see they're interested and they're working out whether it affects them in their department and how they might be able to help you with something, or they genuinely think there might be a connection. That's above the line thinking. Yeah. Whereas actually, if somebody says, well, I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, and that might affect my team, and they're coming from that me being done to, they're feeling threatened, you can spot straight away that they're in that negative, threatened victim mindset. And obviously as leaders, we have to acknowledge that people do dip in and above and below the line every single day. We all go in up and down all the time. We want to be in above the line mode most of the time. And our job as leaders is to try and help people, A, acknowledge that they might be below the line, and then B, try and help them and support them to understand how they get themselves back above the line. So yeah, absolutely. In terms of being conscious of where we sit and how our position as individuals and how our bad day, as we might say, then affects others is one of the first starting points that I talk to quite a lot of my teams about.
Wow. And so, the Nicola Rylett group.
Yes.
This is your baby. Yes. This is where all this greatness gets practiced out of.
Yes.
So I come to Nicola Rylett group. I'm coming to you, and so the first thing you look at is he above or below the line? Now, would you say that someone who's below the line, we don't intentionally want to be below the line. We've been conditioned to be below the line from our home, from our upbringing, and we are invisible to the fact that we are below the line. We don't realize that. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, it's actually more older than that. It's prehistoric times. It's a safety mechanism. So yeah, it's not even just our family upbringing. It's our family's upbringing that means that we occasionally go below the line. So yeah, and absolutely, I've got a couple of things happening at the moment with a couple of clients where 2 or 3 of the people just absolutely do not know they're below the line. They don't think there's anything wrong with what they're saying. They don't think there's anything wrong with how they're blaming things on other people, creating excuses. These are all behaviors that happen when you're below the line. So if somebody's blaming others, if somebody's coming at it from an excuse point of view, then that's when you as a leader from the outside can probably see it. And obviously we have to very tactfully and very carefully and empathetically help them see that that's where they are.
Wow. Do you know what? Maybe we should switch the word business owner to recognition owner. Maybe switch out and say, no, I'm not a business owner. I'm a recognition owner that provides a product and a service. Because, if we just put ourselves in that place where we voiced I'm a recognition owner, it means, well, that's what I do. I recognize about myself to improve my product and services for those that are experiencing it. Maybe we should just ban the word business owner and replace it with recognition owner. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it's a bad call, actually. Recognition actually could go across a lot of different aspects for business owners. You've got the whole sort of, recognizing what your clients need, what your customers need, recognizing what your staff need, and recognizing what your suppliers need. I mean, there's some great examples where, for example, Nike did a whole load of work to improve their supply chain's effectiveness and the efficiency, just because they wanted to reduce the price of the sneaker they were producing, but they didn't want the suppliers to have to go into hardship. So they worked with them using lean principles and got the whole supply chain to reduce the costs and make it more efficient. So there are some great examples where if you recognize what the others around you need, you will benefit as an organization.
Wow, it is. I love hearing these stories, this advanced way of thinking. I mean, I've read the book Shoe Dog. and it's worth reading because it's such an amazing story of Nike and his wonderfulness is where we are.
Well, you and I talk about business books all the time. You know, for those people listening, I run a business book club, completely free to attend. If you're interested, you know, find the links below. I'm sure there'll be some links somewhere.
Put it out there, girl.
Paul.
Where do we find this book club? Where do we go?
So if you go to the Nicola Rylett Group website, the nicolarylett.co.uk, and then you put Inspirante in, you'll find us. It's just there. It's called Inspirante, which is Latin for inspiration.
Wow, Inspirante, okay.
Inspirante.
Inspirante, is that how you say it? I'm sure they'll work it out, but go to the Nicola Rylett Group. Is that correct?
Yes.
Go there. And we're going to give a shout out to how we get hold of you and all these things after the ad in a minute. But I want to just put something out there. Is that you started working at commercial radio selling advertising, and then there's a whole list here. Do you know what I mean? Publishing, advertising, and then regional and national director roles with some of UK's most prestigious organisations. Girl, yes, she put down prestigious organisations. That's the biggest bragging right I've ever heard from Nicola Rylett-Jones. I was like, oh my God, she can say huge things about herself.
Yeah, but I didn't tell you who they were, did I? I can't do that.
No, you didn't.
But, yeah. Working at the commercial radio station was fantastic. I loved it. I was in my element. I was 20-odd, young whippersnapper. At the time, they gave you a company car. I used to jet around the Yorkshire moors. It was based in York, Minster FM it was at the time. Yeah. Oh, my God, what a life we used to lead. Parties, gigs, concerts, events. It was fantastic. I loved it.
Isn't it great you had that kind of, say, that early injection of what it feels like to enjoy a career? And I think that's that's the missing gap for many people in the early stages of their career or business life, is that they don't get to experience an opportunity to enjoy going to work, clocking in and clocking out, or enjoy, being part of a process. And we're going to just jump back into that when we come back in, listeners, because I'm going to have to take us into a quick ad. So I'm going to be back here in 90 seconds. So I will see you at the other side.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Here we are, yes. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. I used to sing that in Sunday school. Every time we used to sing everything, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. And we all be applauding. I wonder now if you got 60 young people into a hall and you ask them, sing, if you're happy and you know it, would they actually clap their hands? Because the sad thing is, youngsters just don't carry the happiness that we used to, because the simplicity is gone, for sure. But here we are with, of course, this wonderful lady, Nicola Rylett-Jones, who loves dancing around the kitchen and clapping when she's happy, and also camping in the Egyptian desert. I mean, how lucky are you?
I'm incredibly lucky. I pinch myself every day. Whether you look up to the sky and talk to God or whoever you want to talk to, I often do talk to something or someone. I'm sure of that. And I always pinch myself because I've been on some amazing adventures. And interestingly enough, that was my first ever holiday on my own. My first ever holiday I was very lucky. I went with a group of girlies to Barbados, the first ever holiday when I was 26. Didn't go on a plane until I was 26. That's how old I am. I don't think planes were around when I first were born. But anyway, the first holiday was to Barbados, but this was my first ever holiday on my own. And it was an adventure holiday and a bit of a personal traumatic time. My husband had just left me and I decided I had to start doing things that scared me because my life wasn't going to be the same. I'd got my whole life planned out. Very happily married, working on my career. Everything was going really lovely. House we had was gorgeous. House of our dreams, the house you want to live in forever, all that kind of stuff. And then that all happened. And I thought, well, my life's not going to be the same. I better start doing things that scare me. Yeah. And so the first weekend I took myself off to Kuwait. I'm absolutely petrified of heights. And so I managed to throw myself off the 50-foot zip wire, crying, screaming all the way down. And then the second thing I did was I went off for this holiday in the Egyptian deserts. And I thought, well, you know, I don't like sand. I've never really been on a holiday on my own. Let's go and do something that's a bit different, a bit scary. And it was fantastic. You just learn so much about yourself when you do things, A, you're a bit scared of, and B, when you do them on your own, because you can't turn around to the person next to you and go, what would you do? How would you cope with that? You just got to go, oh, well, right, not quite sure what I'm going to do here. Better sort someday, or I better go and find myself something to drink or something to eat, or, you know, whatever you need to do. So it's a brilliant thing to do.
So courageous, girl, that's for sure. Let me ask you a question. If you were to title yourself, because I wouldn't title you as say, a business coach, because that's too closeted. How would you title yourself? What would you say you are?
Well, I think coaching is my style. I've been told, and I think I am very coaching in nature and mentoring in nature. Mentoring and coaching are different things, but I think I've got elements of both of them. And so my style is very coaching, but actually I'm a business solver. I solve business problems. So business consultant is what I'd say technically on the website. And people come to me when they've got a business problem. We tend to, you asked about what happens when people come to us, but we tend to basically speak to the business owner or the business recognition person, as you called them earlier. And we say that we ask them a few questions and we do a diagnostic. We see where they are. And often, more or not, it'll be around a misalignment, either for what they want and what's happening in the business, or a misalignment between themselves, the business, and the team. And so they might think they're going to London, say, for example, and actually the rest of the team think they're going to Birmingham. And actually, because the owner's going one way, they're going the other, so much effort is being extended in that regard. And so they really are going nowhere fast. Whereas actually, once we've done the diagnostic, we've highlighted this, we then work with the teams and we bring them closer together based on the purpose, the why, the values, and the niche and what they're trying to achieve. And so that process of alignment can take 3 minutes. It can take 3 years. That's the development of the culture that you want to develop. It takes time. It's a practical thing. You have to really get under the skin of what it means to each individual, what motivates each individual, and the like. So, yeah, we do the diagnostic. We figure out what's happening. Often it'll be about alignment. They'll be thinking, I had it with a client, there's 5 people on the board. They had the word customer in their vision, which is quite unusual, but they had the word customer in their vision. And I asked them to tell me what it meant to them in their own personal words. And I got customer, end user, client, patient, and practitioner. I got 5 different words for the same word, which was customer. And at that point, I said, okay, design me an event. Design me an event that your customer's going to come to. And of course, I got 5 different events. One charged money, one didn't charge money, one gave seminars, one gave practical lectures, one did just nice sort of eventy kind of things. None of them were right. None of them were wrong. They were just misaligned. So as soon as we worked that out, and we got them talking about what the customer actually was and who the customer actually was and what they wanted from this organization, they then could make sure that efforts were pointed towards North Star. They all went in the same direction. And then all the effort then starts to add up, and that effort pays off, and you need less energy then. Then that energy can be spent on giving you the advantage. You're
like a business surgeon, girl. You really are. You really are a business surgeon.
That's a good name. Yeah.
And it fits what you do, because you just say you go through the micro layers of everything. And when you talk about their different stories, I mean, it's a fact of life where, husbands and wives, children, siblings, we all have different stories as to what we think is going on in our home, which then we carry into our business. But let me do this, because I want to shout out your details here, girl. So can we do LinkedIn, Facebook, website, and email? Can you just give out so would it be Nicola Rylett-Jones on LinkedIn and Facebook?
Yeah. So if you look at LinkedIn, it's linkedin.com/in/Nicola-Rylett-Jones. So Nicola Rylett-Jones. If you just put Nicola Rylett-Jones into LinkedIn, that'll come up. Facebook, it's the Nicola Rylett Group. And on Instagram, it's Nicola Rylett. So pretty much there's not many Nicola Ryletts out there. If you put that onto Google, you'll come up with the website, you'll come up with the Instagram, you'll come up with the Facebooks. We also have a weekly blog that you mentioned earlier, which we call the Weekly Digest. It's not really a newsletter. There's no news in it. It's generally me thinking about business topics, chatting about what I think is interesting around a particular accountability piece or a leadership piece or a business problem. And then we've also just created that into a business podcast now. So those podcasts are recorded and they are between 5 and 7 minutes long. That's the sort of the quickness of them. So that can be found.
Where do we go to get those, girl?
So if you go to Spotify and you just put Weekly NRG, that'll come up there.
Happy days, happy days. And I tell you what, listeners, this lady is just a bottomless pit of information. I mean, I get to newsletters, we were talking about money this week, if that's correct, yeah. And I loved your process and your understanding of it. You know, they are amazing reads because they're not sort of there to promote anything. They're there to make us think. And that's what I love about you, Nicola. You're very generous in yourself as a person. Probably overly generous is the case, but I also know that you have an invoice rate that's worth it. And let's understand that, people. You know, Nicola is an investment. She's someone that comes in and changes your perspective. And it's a must to have a Nicola Rylett in your business. It is a must to have. Because, you know, business isn't about how you think of the outside, it's how you think on the inside. That's what business is these days. And it has come where, you know, you are someone that really is a recognition owner, as we say, when running a business. And I want to just move into a little more of some more of these goodies that I got you. So you're renovating a little French shack.
Yeah, and it is, you can't see obviously on radio, but I am sat in an attic that is literally falling down around me as we speak. There's a lovely story here. We're talking about, stories and what drives you and passion. And I've got 3 values. My first is inspiring action. It's all about being practical. So everything I talk about is what you're going to do at the end of every session. It's what are your reflections and what you're going to do about it next. The other one is, adding value. So I can't help myself. If I see an opportunity for adding value, as you say, I give it far too frequently, far too generously, but I can't help myself. And then finally, it's driving success. And so with those 3 values in mind, my husband and I had been traveling around France for many years on camping holidays. He's a bodyboarder, so we've been down to the south, and we'd like cycling. So we'd been up around the Alps and done some cycling, and we love it. And, luckily for me, he asked me to marry him in a French village. And I am now sat in that French village about 100 yards from where he asked me to marry me, in the house that I now own. Because basically, we decided once we got married, we wanted a little project, something to drive us forward, to keep us moving forward within our journey as a family. And it seemed like a great idea to get a sort of holiday home for our families to enjoy and for us to have some retirement income in the end. And I said, well, let's have a look at the Gower. Great. But, you know, for those of you that know Wales, the Gower is very expensive now, like most seaside towns. It was out of our price range. And so we decided to look at France. And as we were coming to look at properties, the estate agents here in France, as they call them, the immobilier, was driving towards the village. And I'm getting more and more excited. She's going to our village. She's going to our village. She's going to our village. He stopped 100 yards from where he asked me to marry him and said, this is the first house I want you to look at. And we looked at it and I fell in love. And so I feel very, very, very privileged that I'm able to sit in this little shack, and it is a shack, and we're doing it up, and it will probably take all my money to do it up. But in the end, I'll still have that sunset and that sunrise, and I'll still be on the riverbank here in the Loire River.
And you're very clear that goals are important in life. It's very clear that's one of your core values. And, when you're looking into, people striving in their business, or even just striving in career, do you feel that they're putting too much pressure on them to be perfectionists rather than enjoyionists? So let's make those words up, because, an enjoyinist, I just made that up. So
yeah,
switching from being a perfectionist to someone that actually enjoys the process, because, so many people are looking for results rather than the journey.
Well, there's a load of that. I could unpack that in about 3 different directions. So let me do that quickly. First of all, Lots of people are so fixated with the end point, which we have to be. We have to start with the end in mind. Where do we want to be in the end? I agree with that. But they get so fixated with that paralyzes them from doing anything. And if it's a big goal, then it's really difficult. What do they say? The statement is, how do you eat an elephant? Well, it's one bite at a time, right? So, you know, they're fixated by the end point that they forget they have to do something and they have to do small steps. And I have that in lots of organizations where the grandness of their plans paralyze the team from getting on with anything. The second area there that you mentioned, which is enjoying the journey. Do you know what? I think Simon Sinek recently said in his podcast with Steve Bartlett that about 26 to 29-year-olds at the moment are having midlife crisis, and that midlife crisis is coming earlier. And that's because lots of people that are quite driven at a young age are comparing themselves with others, comparing themselves with social media, comparing themselves with the rest of their peer group, and they've not got where they want to be fast enough. Now, I had that when I was a youngster. You know, I absolutely changed jobs for money and changed jobs for career potential, all that kind of stuff going on. But if I could give a youngster a piece of advice, it's, you know, actually everything that happens to us, everything that we're supposed to be doing, everything that we do every day is all part of helping us become the person we'll become, the expert we'll become. That, you know, mastery doesn't happen overnight. That's the third point. Mastery has to take time. You have to master things. You have to actually practically get on and do them time and time and time and time again. You can't go, let's take surfing. I was talking about surfing this morning to somebody. You can't go on a 50-foot wave when you've never surfed before. You know, just getting in the water and getting on the board is enough for the first time. And then figuring out how to stand up on the board, then figuring out how to do that on two-inch waves, then figuring out how to do that on a foot wave, et cetera, et cetera. This all takes time. It all takes mastery. And so, yeah, it's enjoying the journey is part of actually learning, becoming the person, becoming the expertise. I couldn't have done what I'm doing and loving and being passionate about today in terms of helping others and having the view of the world that you helped me find actually a couple of months ago, without having gone through all the various jobs I did and all the various careers, all the various mistakes and challenges I made. I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't had those things happen to me.
Why do you do? Because Nicola, I know that, you know, in your notes you said, you know, you've stopped comparing yourself.
Yeah.
You no longer do that, and you know that you currently, you know, I am good enough. Who I am is good enough. But what was the sort of foundation reason for you to becoming, you know, this really broad, deep approach, mentor, coach into the business world? What started? Why did you do that?
Well, I started off loving business, actually. I've been a business person, an MD, a managing director, you know, a director of a department, director of a company for many years. And I love business. But actually, when I worked out what did I love about the business, it was about transforming the business. And when I looked at my career, there wasn't an industry sector. There wasn't a particular type of business I was in, a size of business. It was just basically the business was in one position, let's say A. And actually, I got it and transferred it and grew it to position B or position C, depending on how much we grew. And so the consistency was about growth. And actually, for any business owner or any organization to grow, you have to have that open mindset. You have to be curious. You have to have your people be curious, your people be open. You have to have your people to be motivated. And so I realized quite quickly, yes, I like the business aspects, but it's about getting the people. It's about influencing the people to change their behaviors, to change what they do, to think about things differently, that I really love. And so once I'd figured that out, which was not until I was in my mid-40s, I never wanted to run my own business. I was always happy being a good number two or running a company like as a managing director or a chief exec officer, etc. I love doing that. Happy with that. But actually, once I worked out that it was the people I wanted to influence and affect, then that started changing my thinking. And then I got into this whole piece of, well, actually, yes, I want to change business. I'm really happy with business, but it's the people that will change the business, not the business. Yes, you can create processes, but people create processes. Mm-hmm. So how do you influence the people? How do you get them motivated? How do you get them inspired? And coming back to your point about goals, by the way, and accountability. People set themselves a goal because they think that's what they want. They set themselves a goal because that's what the next, you know, I want a Bentley, I want a 4-bedroom house, I want a yacht. This person on social media's got a Rolex, whatever it is, right? They actually very, very rarely think about whether that's going to make them happy.
Yeah.
And I did this for many years. I love convertible cars. I've got a convertible car. In fact, I've just sold it because I've realized it made me happy. I was very happy with it. But I don't need that to be happy anymore. And
I love that. Hold that thought, because that's massive. You know, what you said is, yes, it makes me happy, but I don't need that to make me happy anymore. But do you feel that you needed it in the first place to create a waypoint almost, to say, I've reached this place, but guess what? I'm past that. I'm far more mature than that waypoint now.
Well, and at the time, because I've got this whole thing from school days of not being good enough. I'm slightly dyslexic, couldn't read, and my school friends, I thought they were my friends. It's my school friends basically made me read in class, and that made me cry. And so I would sit days crying in class. And I got two good things out of that. Number one was my work ethic. I always tried to be in front of everybody else because I knew they were going to ask me, and I didn't want to cry again in class. So I literally worked my socks off. So but that's made me who I am today. And I would never, ever, ever change that. And the second thing was that I understood that actually, it's really important to be open and curious and to learn things. I got my learning, and that the whole sort of I want to learn more ethic from that as well. So starting from there, I suppose when I was successful enough to go and buy my brand new car with cash and all that kind of stuff, I was sort of proving something to other people. I got there. I was, I am good enough. I've got the car. I've got this. I've got that. I've worked my what's it off. I am as good, if not better than you. And so I was doing it for other people for many years. And so it wasn't until I started realizing that actually there's things I can do for myself. So coming back to the point about setting goals, I've got this goal about this French house. It's because I want to spend my summers looking out on the river and relaxing and sewing and living a life that I want to live. And it's not about anybody else anymore. It's about myself. And if that's one thing I could say to business owners or individuals thinking about their career, is don't think about what makes other people happy. Think about what makes you happy. Think about what makes you motivated. What are you passionate about? If I got you on your soapbox and you didn't shut up for 10 minutes, what would you be talking about? What is the one thing? There's a question in conscious leadership terms, which is, what is the one thing that you're really good at that you know needs to change, and only you can change it? And if you don't change it, nobody else is going to do it. That's the thing you should be spending your time on.
Hold that thought, girl. We're going to take that thought into our second commercial business. And listen, listeners, write that down. Have some thought about it, because we're going to be coming back in 90 seconds and deep diving back into the heart of this absolutely amazing lady.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Yes, it's me again, and we are back, of course, with the beautiful, the one and only, the Mrs. Open-Minded of the world. Yes, Nicola Rylett-Jones. Absolutely. It's been really beautiful this opportunity to hear your heart again, because that's one thing. I never hear your mind. I only hear your heart, because that's, you always speak from that center place. You truly do, girl. You truly do. And it's fair to say that, hubby is punching above his weight. And so he should be, because you've worked hard enough to have someone who punched above their weight in your life. But
absolutely.
I have no doubt he's a beautiful man also, and a beautiful soul. He has to be, or he'd not measure up with you, girl.
Now you're going to make me cry now, because I do get really I absolutely just adore him so much. I love him so much, and it's a very different experience this second time around for me. And he is an amazing Mr. Jones.
And I would have to jump on that bandwagon and saying, yes, same year for the second time round. Absolutely beautiful. Deb is, I love it a bit and all these things, but it's not about me today. It's about you. Now, I want to we've got about 5 minutes left, but what I want to talk about is, so you've gone through your pains. You went through where, you were told you weren't good enough in uni. You went through where you perhaps weren't told you were good enough as a leader. And do you feel that they were also driving points for you?
Yeah, I mean, the university one was really interesting because I went to the University of Ripon York St John in York, which is actually affiliated to Leeds University, and I did music and drama there, believe it or not, nothing to do with business at all. Played the clarinet, conducted, and
Wow.
about 3 or 4 weeks in, they said to me, we gave you the wrong offer. We gave you an unconditional offer. You should have had a conditional offer. I went, right, okay, what does that mean? Well, if you don't pass your grade 5 piano by the end of term, we're going to have to let you go.
Oh, wow.
At this point, I was playing Bar Bar Black Sheep on a piano. Let's put it that way. It wasn't great. And, I never really played the piano. I only did it to go to university. And so they were very good. They got me some extra teachers. But before that, I went back to my dorm, as you do, in the halls of residence, and just looked at my friend, told her what was going on, crying my eyes out. And she just sent me a little postcard that had a swear word on it. And it said, don't let the beep get you down. Yeah. Okay. And actually, she's from Newcastle, and she said it in a Newcastle accent. And she was really, really, you're not going to let these people get the better of you. And I was like, wow, that's new. I wouldn't have done that. I'd have cried, gone into my hall, probably tried to practice. When it failed, I'd have gone home. That'd have been it. But she basically made me decide that I was going to work my socks off. And I became the biggest pain in the bottom that university had seen. If I didn't understand something in class, I put my hand up. If I'd be practicing, I asked for extra lessons. I asked for extra teachers. I asked for the practice rooms to be open longer for me. And all this kind of stuff, just so I could say that in the end, I've worked my very, very, very best. They say, do or do not, there is no try. And my dad wisdom, I love my dad. He's a maintenance manager, fantastic guy. And he always said to me, did you do your best? Not did you try? Did you do your best? If you did, nobody can say anything against you. And that's what I always think. It's not about trying your best. It's about doing your best. And so that the university lesson, I think, taught me that. And I stayed and I got a really good degree. So that's fine.
Oh, happy days. Do you think, Nicola, that, youngsters just don't ask enough? Or is it the older generation, like my generation, that just don't ask enough? We just live in our own stories. And that's what creates breakdown in communication.
I don't know if it's about asking enough. I think we are the superstars of our own movies. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about your life, you're the superstar of it. You're the main actor, aren't you? You're the main part of your movie. But the thing is, there's lots of other moving parts going on around you. And it's when we take some time to think about the others in the story, how we affect the others, how the storyline could have changed if we just thought about something in a different way, or not said that thing to that one person, or taken a moment to say something nice to somebody else. That's when life becomes much more complicated, and that tapestry of wonderful, interesting, intersectional activities and experiences is where life comes together.
Wow. Again, another dump of wisdom into the show from this amazing lady. Let's have your contact details again there, girl.
Oh, so you can get me at Nicola at the nicolarylettgroup.co.uk, and the website is thenicolarylettgroup.co.uk.
Happy days. And all these contact details will be put out underneath the show anyway, listeners. You can't get that there. You really do want to reach out to this lovely lady. She will always give you time in her French life, that's for sure, in between her French sticks and a glass of wine.
I'll tell you what, if there's anybody who wants to speak French with me, I'm trying to learn conversational French. It's really difficult. If any of your listeners want to help me practice my French, I'd be grateful. I'll give them all of my time for that.
Brilliant. So if you want mentoring from this lady and you want it in French, then there's discounts there for sure. Let's put that out there. Absolutely, it is. It's fantastic. Nicola Rylett-Jones, I appreciate you. I appreciate your husband. I appreciate everything that you've offered into the show today. I know all our listening audience is going to get a chunk of so much from what you've offered freely to our listening ears today. You're just beautiful, girl. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. But Paul, if I may say, as always, speaking to you makes me think of so many other things that I want to explore. And I love some of the things we talked about today, which is, recognition and business surgeon and all those things. So watch this space. We'll see what comes of that. Thank you.
Let me just do it. How do we get your newsletter that you send out every week? Let me go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. If you just go onto LinkedIn, to the Nicola Rylett group and just send me a message, connect and send me a message. I'll just send you the appropriate GDPR appropriate form, because obviously we can't just sign you up these days. We have to be very efficient and follow the regulations. So we've just got a little form you can fill in that gives us permission to send you the weekly digest. So yeah, go onto LinkedIn, see Nicola Rylett-Jones on LinkedIn, send me a quick message and I'll send you the form.
Happy days. That's where you go to get this lovely lady. And okay, listeners, we have run out of time for sure. So until this time next week, you have an amazing book-seeking, inner-diving week. And you know what? If you can't find your book, reach out to this lovely Nicola Rylett-Jones, because she will fill you with all the books that will fill you for the rest of your life. And here's a question. It's not what you get out of the book, it's what the book gets out to you. Until this time next week, listeners, boom and bye for now!
Emotions are